Hey everyone, I'm Brad and this is Watch Rate Heart, and it's Friday, which means it's time for the watch list. It's where I discuss the films I've watched and my feelings about them. And this week, let's focus on films about something that we all have to do at some point, some of us for 70% of our waking lives. The answer to that question is work, which is why I'm reviewing films set in the workplace. Whether it's an office or a restaurant, these films highlight the dynamics of a workplace in funny or sometimes depressing ways. So with that out of the way, let's get into our first review.
Why would they want to do a nasty thing like that?
I don't know. I'm not such a bad guy.
You're a sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot.
So I have a few faults. Who doesn't?
And we are starting with the classic 1980 workplace comedy 9 to 5, starring Lily Tomlin, Jane Fonda, and Dolly Parton, directed by Colin Higgins. It has a Letterboxd score of 3.9 out of 5, has an IMDb of 6.9 out of 10, a Rotten Tomatoes of 70% fresh, and Metacritic of 58. As for accolades, it was nominated for an Oscar for Best Song. I've heard a lot of really good things about 9 to 5, and I've got to be honest, I'm not exactly thrilled with it. I think it's good. I think it's fun and cute in its own way. It's just not great. I am finding myself with comedies in the 70s and 80s that are considered classics. Like Tucci was another one that people would gush about, and I watch it and go, meh, and I'm kind of in that same boat with 9 to 5, although I did enjoy 9 to 5. But one of the things I did like about the film is the lead actress in the film, because they do all the heavy lifting in this film. They really hold up the movie. Jane Fonda, Dolly Parton, and Lily Tomlin do a great job in the film. I think a lot of what makes the film good is their chemistry, and I think the film gets funnier and honestly a lot better as it hurtles towards the end. It takes a while to get to the point where the girls actually kidnap their boss, and that's where I think most of the best laughs come from the film. By the way, speaking of the boss, Dabney Coleman is really good as a scumbag boss. I think he's perfect with the role, and really the film relies on some absurd jokes, some fantasy jokes throughout the entire film, and not a lot of them landed for me, especially the fantasy jokes that were in the film. I thought they were kind of weird and felt kind of off. I know some do enjoy those jokes. They did really nothing for me. But again, as the film moved forward, I actually found myself enjoying it more and more. And by the end, was all right with the film after I was done. So overall, I'm going to give 9 to 5 2.5 stars out of 5. It's a fun and light film. I think the lead actresses hold up the material more than anything else. I think they are really the highlights of the film. And the film does get funnier and better as the film head towards the end. And Dabney Coleman is great as the boss. But I think a good half of the jokes just didn't land for me, and that's really most of the jokes in the beginning and the middle, to be absolutely honest. I think the ending was good to a certain point, but from what I've heard about how good the film is, I'm a little disappointed by it. So overall, 2.5 stars out of 5 for me for 9 to 5. And with every episode of the watch list, I not only give you my opinions on films, I also give you the opinions of the Letterboxd community. This first review is from Nora. Nora gives it 4 stars out of 5 with a heart, and Nora says, Dolly Parton, please tie me up with a phone cord. Here's one thing I want to talk about, okay? There's the one fantasy sequence where Dolly Parton basically sexually harasses and ties up the boss as like a revenge for what he does to her. And I'm thinking to myself, I would die to be in that situation. It's like, are you kidding me? That's a punishment? I understand that it's unwanted and it's harassment and it's not meant to be like that. But honestly, if Dolly Parton were to do that to me, I've been like, okay, like great. What a punishment. But yeah, I kind of get the context, but you know. Let's get into the next review, which is from Lau. Lau gives it 4 stars out of 5 with a heart, and Lau says, just a movie about a couple of girls getting together, smoking pot, eating ribs, and fantasizing about killing their misogynistic boss. In other words, a damn good time, especially when watched with an awesome watch partner, and he highlights the watch partner in his review. Also, a quick PSA, always make sure you steal the right dead body from the hospital morgue. That was actually pretty funny. I have to agree with that. That was funny. Let's get into the next review. This one is from Sam Gillard. Sam Gillard gives it 4 stars out of 5 with a heart, and Sam says, the M&M's line is one of the best deliveries I've ever heard. That is the best line in the whole movie. So, Jane Fonda did a great job with that line. I thought it was hilarious. And this final review is from Neon Ghost Wolf. Neon Ghost Wolf gives it 4 stars out of 5, and Neon Ghost Wolf says, fun comedy about toxic masculinity on the workplace and how to deal with it. All our leads are wonderful. yes, I think the leads are probably the best part of this film. Absolutely. So in review, again, I think the lead actresses are what make this film good, as well as Dabney Coleman, who plays the boss. I think he plays a great scumbag boss. And the film does get better as the end rolls along, but I gotta be honest, I think 50% of the jokes worked for me, 50% didn't. And with that, I was kind of disappointed with the film, especially with how much I've heard this is such a great film. But yeah, 2.5 stars out of 5 for me for 9 to 5. It's an alright time. I enjoyed it for what it was, but honestly, I'm probably gonna forget about it right after I'm done with this review.
Now let's go meet some nice policemen. They're good guys. Come on, let's go.
I'm the bad guy?
Let's move on to the next film, and that is the 1993 dramatic thriller Falling Down, starring Michael Douglas, Robert Duvall, and Barbara Hershey, directed by Joel Schumacher. It has a Letterboxd score of 3.7 out of 5, an IMDb of 7.5 out of 10, a Rotten Tomatoes of 75% fresh, and a Metacritic of 56. As for accolades, it was nominated for the Palme d'Or that year, and it lost to Farewell, My Concubine. Ah, God, what can I say about Falling Down? I mean, I am actually kind of confused. Not really, but I'm kind of confused as to what were the filmmakers thinking about in this film. Like, am I supposed to root for the main character? Am I supposed to feel bad for the main character? Should I hate him? What am I supposed to be feeling in this movie? Because in the end, I'm actually legitimately confused. Is it supposed to be one of these films where you kind of root for him in the beginning because you kind of understand what he's going through, and then all of a sudden at the end you're kind of disgusted with yourself because you did? Because I felt none of that at all. I hated this character. I really did. I was annoyed by him, and I don't think he was saying anything all that deep and profound. A lot of the things that he's complaining about is incredibly dumb. And I think at certain points in the film, they make you want to feel like, yeah, this guy's got a point. And I'm sitting here going, this is the stupidest shit. I understand complaining about prices. Good Lord. Even today, I understand about complaining about prices, but you're going to victimize like the store owners, you're going to victimize the people who work at a store. And not only is like the main character not interesting or someone I would root for, every other character, I mean, well, honestly, every character in this film is completely one-dimensional. So you're not getting like a full three-dimensional character at all in any part of this film. Everyone is just a character with a purpose that is only drive the plot along. Even the cop character, who's played by Robert Duvall, also is one-dimensional. There's nothing interesting in terms of character work and story in this film at all. And on top of that, the film also gets pretty absurd at the end, but it's not absurd enough to feel like a satire. So I'm watching this going, this is way too over the top for something I should be taking seriously. And yet, it's not funny at all what's going on. And I'm not having one of those things where it's not funny because it's so serious. It's not funny because it's not funny. It's not a funny movie at all. Like, nothing in this film worked. At the end of the film, I was glad it was over. It's like, Jesus Christ, what is this? When it comes to the story, the characters, what the film is trying to say, I was not responding well to any of it. I actually hated everything about this film towards the end. I think it's confused. I think it's muddled. I don't think the film even knew what it wanted you to feel about the character. It just wanted you to not think too deeply about it and go, yeah, prices are damn too high. Oh my God, what is with all the noise? Oh my God, why is this happening? Oh my God, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just sitting here going, really? This is so stupid. Oh God. I guess the most succinct way to say it is, I hate Falling Down. This film's awful. Yeah, so I guess you can guess what my overall rating is going to be, and that rating is a 0.5 star out of 5. Just a terrible movie. Hated everything about the main character. I don't know if the filmmakers knew if they wanted you to root for the main character, feel bad for the main character, or even be disgusted by the main character. I'm betting what they wanted you to feel was all of it. And then at the end, I felt none of it other than, I'm so glad this is over. Every character is one-dimensional. There's nothing interesting about any character. They're all stereotypes in some sort of ways. And this film is in this area where it gets pretty absurd at certain points, but it's not absurd to the point where it's satire. And it's not absurd just to be absurd. I just watch it and going, what the hell are they doing? All I can say is I hated this movie very much. So overall, 0.5 star out of 5 for me for Falling Down. Awful movie. Now let's get into the Letterboxd reviews. This one is from Will Sloan. Will gives it 1 star out of 5, and Will says, in 1993, a movie could be pitched as Imagine Taxi Driver, but based on the comedy of Dennis Leary. An audience and critics would respond, go on. I think some might see some dark comedic aspects to it. I don't even think it was trying that. honestly. I just think the film is just messy. This next review is from Matt Lynch. Matt Lynch doesn't give it any rating at all. And honestly, maybe I should have done the same thing, but Matt Lynch says, inexcusable. This movie may not be racist in authorial intent, but it is racist, among other things. Because although it is not uncritical of him, you are expected to understand that this man has a legitimate beef. Yes! That is absolutely true. There are things about this film that I think are racist too, don't get me wrong. But I think that is my biggest problem with the film, is that this film makes it seem like this guy has a point. And I'm like, no, he really does not. Like, he's just an asshole. And the film even shows that, I think, a third of the way through, where you're thinking that, oh, he just snapped. He just is having a bad day. And then you find out that, no, he's had anger issues before. He's had anger problems with an ex-wife who is so afraid of him that he's had a restraining order against him. And yet, the film wants you to sympathize with him. And I'm like, no, stop it. Matt has a great point. This next review is from Stace. Stace gives it 3.5 stars out of 5, and Stace says, the opening scene is a perfect depiction of what sensory overload feels like. The heat, the noise, the relentless pressure of a world that won't let up. It instantly puts you in his headspace. That suffocating feeling of too much at once. Michael Douglas's performance was great. He makes the character both believable and unnerving. A very good film. In regards to the beginning, it is interesting, the opening scene. What they do is they start the film off where it's a close-up of Michael Douglas's mouth, and it gradually pulls back, and it starts to show everything that's surrounding him in close-ups that are very loud and obnoxious, and it shows him walk off, and that's the beginning. And yeah, okay, I can see how that kind of works. And finally, this last review is from Lucy. Lucy gives it 2.5 stars out of 5, and Lucy says, this was way too over the top for me. Here's the thing, and I mentioned it in my review. This film is over the top in a lot of ways, but I still don't think it's over the top enough to turn it into a dark comedy. I think it's still too serious on that end. Since it is too serious on that end, and it's not really satirical, and the film wants you to sympathize in a way with this character, I think every aspect of this film doesn't work. There's really no other way to say it. Like, I hate this film. I don't think the film really understands how it wants you to feel about the main character, and I just end up not caring at all, honestly, and just saying, I think this guy's just an asshole. Fuck him, I don't care. Every other character is one-dimensional and completely uninteresting, and it starts to get pretty absurd by the end, but it's not absurd enough to be a satire, so it's not really funny. You know what it feels like? It feels like it's absurd in a 90s way, but not in a charming 90s way. Absurdity reminds me of something you would have in a 90s action film. And that's where I think the film really falls apart. Like, the final scenes in the film is him with a bazooka. And he's like, how do I operate this thing? And suddenly this young black child comes in the frame and goes, oh yeah, you just pull that out here and you do push this button. They're like, how the hell would he know that? And I think that was partly to be comedic. And what happens at that scene at the end too is meant to be comedic. And I just sat there just shaking my head going, really? Like, okay, sure. I just think this movie's awful. I was so glad this was over. Honestly, at the end of the movie, I shook my head and just said to myself, what the fuck is this? This is fucking awful. And was glad it was over. So yeah, Falling Down, awful film. The next film is the workplace comedy Clockwatchers, starring Parker Posey, Toni Collette, Lisa Kudrow, and Alana Ubach. Directed by Jill Sprecker. It has a Letterboxd score of 3.7 out of 5, an IMDb of 6.6 out of 10, a Rotten Tomatoes of 87% fresh, and a Metacritic of 68. It has no accolades as of right now. Yeah, so I got into Clockwatchers, and I gotta be honest. At first, I did not like any of the characters. I wasn't interested in any of them. The attempts at some of the comedy in the film were not working for me. Like, I think the first 30 to 40 minutes, I was pretty bored. And then something clicked, I would think, halfway to nearly the third act of the film, where then everything started to fall into place and the movie really started to be great for me and started to really work. And it's when the film really shows the mundanity and the feelings of uselessness that these characters have and how it overtakes them is where I really got invested in the film in a very strange way. I think what changed is, if you haven't seen the film, I'm going to spoil it a little bit, but I'm not going to spoil it too much. It's where they changed the desks out, where I was like, oh, I see where this film is going. And I was surprised by how it hit me in a certain way. Like, I was really surprised. The film hits this very specific feeling of aimlessness and desperation. The film does a great job of making you understand why somebody would work at a job that has no upward mobility, has no way of improving yourself, has no way of improving your livelihood, but yet its mundanity, its boringness, its absolutely soulless work is enough to sustain you just to make a paycheck or just to live. And it kind of makes you understand why someone would spend 20 years doing this and absolutely hating their jobs, but still going there for some weird reason. It's actually incredibly devastating in a weird way. I found myself moved, and I found myself kind of like shocked by how much it affected me at the end. And I'll tell you another thing that shocked me. I actually like Parker Posey in this movie. I think she's actually the best character and the best actor in the film. I think she's really good in the movie. And I think the reason why is because this film doesn't shy away from the fact that Parker Posey's character is not a really likable person at all. And I think that's a great thing, because the other movies that she did do that I did not like the Day Trippers, like Party Girl, I didn't like her character at all, because the film wanted me to like her and I could not stand her. But in this movie, I actually like the character and how she plays it and how flawed she is. And I think she just does a really good job playing that character. I like a lot about this film, even though I'll say again, first 30 to 45 minutes, I was about ready to call it off. But when it hits the corner, then I understand why it is that way, and it works incredibly well. I am very surprised how much I like Clockwatchers. Really good movie. So overall, I'm going to give Clockwatchers 4 stars out of 5 with a heart. Very good movie. Very good movie. I like all 4 actresses in the film. Toni Collette's very good, but I think the best performance is Parker Posey. The film just has this way of turning a corner and making you suddenly realize why someone would keep this type of job even though it makes them miserable, even though there's no chance of moving up or enriching your life in any other way. It's just to make a paycheck, and it's just to waste time until you inevitably die, I guess. I don't know. It really does a great job of connecting you with these 4 characters and understanding the dynamics of the office and how it makes people act the way they do, even when you don't quite understand it when it happens to you. It's actually a strangely devastating movie, and I was quite surprised how much it hit me. So overall, 4 stars out of 5 for me for Clockwatchers. Let's get into the Letterboxd reviews. This one is from Neil Shaunis. Neil gives it 4 stars out of 5, and Neil said, "No one told me this is a horror movie." It kind of is. That's what makes it so disturbing. Like, you're watching this film and you're expecting like a light comedy with a little bit of drama, and then it just hits you in this weird way. And the way it hits you is really effective. This next review is from Saren. Saren gives it 3 stars out of 5, and Saren says, "Seeing them wear repeated outfits is one of the most realistic things I have seen in films lately." You know, I didn't even catch that when I was watching this, and that is a good detail to notice as well. This next review is from Jacer22. Jacer gives it 3 stars out of 5, and Jacer says, "Ideal blunt rotation. Mike White needs to bring Victoria back for the next season of White Lotus and add these 3 as her best friends from North Carolina immediately." Okay, so if you haven't seen the White Lotus, in the last season, Parker Posey was in that season as a housewife to a very rich person who is on a whole load of mental health medications, an unseen amount of mental health medications. Again, I'm not a fan of Parker Posey, but I thought she did well in the role. I wouldn't mind seeing this turn out in White Lotus season 4, but there could be better. I don't know. But yeah, I see where Jacer is coming from here. And finally, this last review is from Theo. Theo gives it 3 stars out of 5, and Theo says, "Oh, so this is what Phoebe did at work all day." I will say this, though. Lisa Kudrow is a very underrated actor when it comes to comedy. There are films that she was in, like, later on, didn't do so well or didn't get enough attention that actually she was very good in. And I think that's a shame that she didn't get the attention that I think she might have deserved. But what I will say is, dramatically, she does a very good job in this. So I was very surprised in seeing Lisa Kudrow do so well in Clockwatchers. All right, so in review, at first, I wasn't liking the film at all. I found it uninteresting. The attempt at comedy, I just did not like. But then the film turns a corner, and the drama gets really, really good. And it's by showing the mundanity and the feelings of uselessness that overtakes these girls as they're working. It is when the film turns a corner and it gets really good. It just hits this very specific feeling of aimlessness and desperation that makes you understand why someone would work at this soulless job for as long as they do, because as much as it does not help you, it also just sustains you just enough. And the film just hits that feeling really well. And all four performers are great, but I particularly like Parker Posey in this, which is shocking because I usually do not like Parker Posey, but she is very good in it. But as a drama set in a workplace, I found it highly effective and surprisingly effective at that. So 4 stars out of 5 for Clockwatchers. If you have not given this a chance, I would say go check it out. And the last review is the 1996 film set in a restaurant, Big Night, starring Tony Shalhoub, Mark Anthony, and Minnie Driver, directed and starring Campbell Scott and Stanley Tucci. It has a Letterboxd score of 3.9 out of 5, an IMDb of 7.3 out of 10, a Rotten Tomatoes of 96% fresh, and Metacritic of 80. It has no accolades as of right now. So this film was the one movie I really wanted to watch this week, and I'm glad I did. I definitely enjoyed Big Night. One of the biggest strengths the film has is its characters. All of them are absolutely charming and a lot of fun to watch. Even when they're doing serious things or when they're having dramatic moments, it was just a joy to watch these characters interact. I will say this, if you're one of these people who really like to look at really good food in film, Big Night is a really good film to do that with, because the dinner scenes are not only great because of that, but the scenes are also full of life. And it's what this large group of characters get together, and they have these really nice scenes in the film. It was really charming to watch. It's very lovely to watch. This film does a great job of just reminding me of what like local restaurants used to be like, especially local Italian restaurants that I used to go to back in like the 90s and the 2000s. I don't see a lot of them anymore. It's definitely got this vibe, this charm to it, that if you are one of those people that really watches a film due to a vibe or just due to a feeling, I think Big Night's going to be one of those movies that you're going to really like. Now, I both really like and don't like the ending all that much. I don't mind that the film's ending is a downer. I'm not going to spoil what exactly happens. I don't like how it is a downer. The reason has to do with the character Pascal, who was played by Ian Holm. Again, I'm not going to spoil what happened, but it was kind of obvious what was going on with that character. I just don't understand, with everything else they were doing in the film, why have that character at all? Or have that character do what he did? I think it was a little unnecessary for it to be that down. I don't mind a downer ending in this movie. I think it kind of fits overall. But I still feel like what they did with that character and what he meant at the end just doesn't feel all that necessary overall to what the film was going for. I think it was a little bit overboard in my eyes. But yeah, overall, I'm going to give Big Night 3.5 stars out of 5. It's a very good film. I really like the vibes, the emotions, the feeling that you get from it, especially during the dinner scene. I think it's really good in this. And honestly, the film relies on the charm of the characters and the actors who played them, especially Stanley Tucci in this film, who is really good. And I like Tony Shalhoub as well in a lot of these scenes. Honestly, I like every actor in this film. I think they all do a great job. As much as I do like the overall ending, I don't like how it got there. There's one aspect of the ending that I feel kind of feels off with the rest of the film, but I don't think it ruins the film. It just gives me a bit of a negative feeling towards it. So overall, 3.5 stars out of 5 for me for Big Night. All right, let's get into the Letterboxd reviews. This one's from Alfonso. Alfonso gives it 4 stars out of 5, and Alfonso says, "Love this shit, one of my favorite endings." You know, I really do like the actual ending of the film. I think when I talk about my problem with the ending, it's what leads to the ending. But I do like the final scene in the film. I actually think it's quite lovely, and I definitely enjoy that. And you know what? A lot of people on Letterboxd did as well. This next review is from Robert. Robert gives it 2.5 stars out of 5, and Robert says, "Meh, even though it's set in the 50s, there are a lot of truth about working and running a restaurant. There is so much smoking in this movie, it's damn near a character." Yeah, I actually didn't notice that. No, he's probably right, actually. The big plot twist in the middle was strange and didn't add all that much to the story, although you now root for Tucci less. I saw the ending coming a mile away. Yes, I did too. The huge dinner looked incredible. Pasta pie thing was tantalizing. Yeah. I don't even like pasta all that much, and I always like, that actually looks really good. All right, this next review is from Sally Jane Black. Sally Jane Black doesn't give it any rating, and Sally says, "Charmingly anticlimactic, beautifully filmed food porn, and Minnie Driver deserves better." I think the food porn thing is really on point, actually. As for anticlimactic, I don't know about that. And finally, this last review is from Alyssa Heflin. Alyssa Heflin gives it 4 stars out of 5 with a heart. And Alyssa says, kept gasping, oh my god, at the food, at Minnie Driver, at Tony Shalhoub's arms, really? At how cute Allison Janney is. Yes! Oh my gosh, she is so adorable in this movie. Just a real bevy of riches. Yeah, this film is just an absolute charm fest. It really is just one of those films that you either are going to click with it or you're not. And it seems like a lot of people actually very much clicked with it. In review, it's kind of simple. I think this film is just charming from its characters to the actors who play it. And I also think the scenes involving the dinner are great, full of life, full of warmth, nostalgia in certain ways. Those scenes are really good. I just don't like how it led toward the ending of what happened with Pascal in the film. I think that was the biggest problem that I had. But really, still a very charming film. If you have not seen Big Night and you are into these types of films, I'd say definitely give it a shot. It's a lot of fun. Now let's recap the films I've reviewed in this episode. I gave 3.5 stars out of 5 for Big Night. A very charming film thanks to its great characters and the actors who play them. I think the scene involving the dinner is easily the best scenes of the film, but I did have a problem with what one character did in the film towards the ending. I gave 3 stars out of 5 for 9 to 5. I think the lead actresses are what make this film work, and it goes well above the material given. And Dabney Coleman is great as the boss in the film, but I will admit it does get funnier and better by the end of the film. But honestly, some of the movie's more absurd jokes just did not land for me, but it was a fun time for what it was. I gave a half star out of 5 for Falling Down. I was confused as to if I was supposed to root for the main character or find him disturbing or disgusting, and I don't think the film really knew either. I think every character in this film is one-dimensional, and it starts to get pretty absurd by the end, but not absurd enough to feel like it's a satire. Falling Down is just an absolute muddled mess that doesn't know what it wants to be, and overall I ended up absolutely hating the experience. And my film of the week, and a surprising film of the week, is Clockwatchers. At first, I really wasn't interested in the characters, and I think the attempts at comedy pretty much fall flat, but then the film takes a turn for the dramatic, and it becomes incredibly effective, and it shows the feelings of uselessness and mundanity that overtake the main characters. It has a very specific feeling of aimlessness and desperation, and the thing that really surprised me, I actually really like Parker Posey in this film. Very good performance by Parker Posey. And that is it for this episode of Watch, Rate, Heart. But before I go, let me ask you a question. What type of work would you like to see represented in a film? Honestly, and this is probably because I have a bias from working there, I think I'd like to see a film set in a bank. And I know people are going to be like, that sounds incredibly boring. But I used to work in banks for a long time. And I got to say that there are some very interesting and weird things that you have to do to make a bank run. And I think that will add a dramatic or comedic tension to it that I think a lot of films have not utilized. So I think a film that is set in a bank and people who work there would be a fascinating film to watch. Maybe I'll make a screenplay about it. I probably won't. Who am I kidding? If you liked any of the reviews I've highlighted in this episode, you can check the video description for a link to their Letterboxd profile, and be sure to give them a follow and tell them that Brad from Watch Rate Heart sent you. You can follow me at Letterboxd and X at Watch Rate Heart. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and share with your friends. I'm Brad from Watch Rate Heart. Thank you for watching, and remember, we all watch and rate movies, but you give them the heart that makes them live forever.